talk about the NC Turbo Kit. Now, we've talked about this a bunch, but we are officially launching it next Tuesday, May 13th. So sign up, make sure you are ready. So this is going to be a Q&A session. We've got a bunch of questions ahead of time. If you have questions on anything here, definitely drop them in the comments and we will get to them live. And horizontal video tomorrow for those who don't like vertical videos, but no live questions tomorrow. So, couple of things to start off with. Now, we have passed our carb testing. Everything's good there, but we don't have our official EO yet. So we're still a few months out on that if you're watching it live. If you're in the future, then we should already have it, but that's just a paperwork thing at this point. We also have a bunch of these kits in stock, ready to go. This isn't we'll take your order and then in a week or a month or whatever, we'll ship your kit. We'll ship it in a couple of days. That said, there is a finite number of those kits, so if you know you want one, don't hesitate. Go to the website, click that notify when available button, and make sure you're signed up so you will be the first to know on Tuesday, May 13th. There's some questions I will answer preemptively about when. Mid-morning. There's a lot of things that can vary with the exact time, but mid-morning Mountain Time is going to be in that vicinity. So now we also have a bunch of videos that are done ahead of time and even more videos coming. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can go look at on our YouTube channel. One of note is what's it like to live with a turbo, with an FM NC Turbo Miata. Mike did that video a few months ago, so that's a good one if you want to see what this is like to live with on a daily basis. We also have a complete set of installation instructions or instructional videos coming. Now, the printed instructions are already on the website, so you can go check those out right now. The video instructions are coming, so those should be on the site by Tuesday if all goes according to plan. There's a lot in there. And we also have some tech and deep dive videos. So there are 4 videos. These are a little shorter, a little easier to digest. I think 15 to 30, maybe 45 minutes for the tuning one. But we do one on kind of the turbo assembly. We do one on the whole kit layout as a whole. We do one on tuning theory with our OE level calibrator, Greg Banish of Calibrated Success. And that is a really good one. That one's a little long, but it's worth it. And then we also do a thermal management video where we kind of talk about what we've done with the kit to manage all the thermal things. More power equals more heat. So, and for the first batch, again, we don't have the carb EO, but it is SEMA certified, which means that it is fully legal in all 49 states right now, and California will be coming soon. So, I'll give a real quick rundown. We have our display engine here. So this is what the kit looks like once it's installed in a car if you strip the car away. I'm not going to talk about specifics there, but we have all this here so that if you have questions about anything specific, we can show you exactly what's going on and hopefully answer your question intelligently. We have our faithful test mule here, Nancy. Many, many miles, track, cross-country trips, all sorts of that stuff on this car. And we have a complete kit. So this is a complete production kit with all the parts, all the small little widgets that we have to make it as complete as possible. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics here unless you want me to, and if you do, ask, and I will be happy to do that. But custom formed silicone, custom turbo blanket, the manifold, outlet, intercooler. We've got a complete cat or a weld-on flange here if you want to save some money. Airbox, battery box, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you have questions there, drop them in the comments and we will get to them. Now we have a few questions that I saw. You guys were early, good job. So we had a few questions before we actually started, so we'll answer those and any more that have come in, and then I'll go through my list, and then we'll give you another opportunity at the end. So, questions.
What time will we start taking orders on the 13th?
So what time? Again, it's going to be mid-morning on the 13th. I'm not going to commit to a specific time, but you will get an email as soon as it goes live. Assuming you've signed up, again, notify, go to the listing, notify when available, make sure you're logged into your account, and you'll get an email as soon as it goes live, but mid-morning Mountain Time on the 13th.
Talk about power eventually.
Yeah. So in terms of power, if you have specific questions about power, let me know. If you have general questions about power, there are dyno charts on the website. Now those are uncorrected at 5,000 feet of elevation, so dynos are a little weird for us. The short version is 220 to 240 horsepower at the wheels, uncorrected up here. This is a really, really short version. Again, you have more specific questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm trying to keep it brief. That could be a long discussion. More?
Thoughts on which turbo housing would be best for autocross?
Thoughts on which turbine housing would be better for autocross? So I will skip ahead a little bit on that. I'll give a little bit of back information. Again, I'm going to try this. This could be a long video, so I'm going to keep it kind of high level. If you want more detail, just ask. But initially, I'm going to keep it high level. So this is the turbo, and this is the turbine housing. And we offer two different turbine housing options, one with a 0.64 AR and one with a 0.86 AR. If you're curious about what the AR is, ask the internet. This video, again, is not the place to discuss that, but the short version is a smaller number there means that it's going to spool up more quickly, be more responsive at the expense of top-end power. So the 0.64 is going to be really sharp response. It's great, especially at high elevation. It's great for street cars, and it really still makes very good power. The 0.86 is going to be better if you want more power at the expense of spool, and it's still very responsive, just not as responsive. So in terms of autocross, the 6.4 is probably going to be the better option for you because it's going to be much, much snappier. I exaggerated there. It is going to be snappier, again, at the expense of top-end power, but we're talking, depending on the boost you're running and all that kind of stuff, 10, 15, maybe 20 horsepower, that kind of thing. So for autocross, I would run the smaller housing. For if you have an engine swap, if you are running track use, the bigger housing is going to be a better option because it's a little less restrictive, which means that it's going to be better for cooling with a big housing than the small housing. We are kind of splitting hairs there. They're both okay. They're both going to be fine depending on your situation, but the 86 is going to give you just a little more headroom there. So hopefully I answered that question. Yes?
We talk about wastegate preload setting versus manual boost controller and why we use preload.
Sure. So the wastegate this is the wastegate actuator. The wastegate is in here, and that's how you control the boost pressure in your turbo effectively. And the preload is how tight this guy is on the wastegate itself. So we use wastegate preload, excuse me, basically to keep the price of the kit down. So that way we don't have to add a manual boost controller in there because you don't need a manual boost controller to get the different boost settings. Again, maybe not again, but 8 PSI for cast internal engines. So that's all automatic NCs as well as NC1s. And then the NC2s and 3s have stronger engine internals, so we're running 11 PSI on those. Now, a manual boost controller, a good one, can help the boost come up a little bit faster, which is great. This kit doesn't really need help with that, but hey, every little bit, I suppose. Where I would use a manual boost controller is that if you semi-regularly vary your elevation by more than, say, 1,000 feet, then it is probably worth installing a manual boost controller because that way, when you change an elevation, you can correct your boost level with a few clicks of your manual boost controller as opposed to having to reset the preload on the wastegate actuator. And that's another one of those things. If you guys want more details there, I'm happy to talk about it, but to kind of keep it brief-ish, that's the short version. I'll give you slightly more detail. If you go up in elevation, your boost level goes down, so you lose power, but there's no real danger. If you go down in elevation, you gain boost effectively, you gain power, which is great, but then you could potentially overboost, which is a problem. So if you're only going uphill, it's not that big of a deal. If you go downhill significantly, yeah, you kind of want to pay attention to that. Yes?
Will it fit right-hand drive?
Will it fit right-hand drive? Good question. TBD. So we are actually investigating that right now. Initially, I thought no, a little more investigation. I'm not quite so pessimistic anymore. That is not a yes. I want to be clear about that. But that is we're digging into it deeper to answer the question as definitively as we can before actually installing it on a right-hand drive car. So TBD on that one. I'm cautiously optimistic. Yes?
Could you describe how difficult do you think the installation is for a DIYer?
So how difficult is the installation? There are a lot of steps. There's nothing really too complicated in it. There are a few things that I will point out. Excuse me. You do need to either weld this to your stock cat, so you need to chop that off, weld the flange on, or buy a brand new complete one from us, which is obviously very easy, but more expensive. The map sensor is on the back side of the intake manifold. That's a headache to get to. We have a special bracket here. We've done a bunch of little things. It's actually right here. And actually, look, we've got our new one installed. So you can see there's a new map sensor with our bracket. So it's really easy to get to when there's no car around it. But when there's a car around it, it's very, very tight in here. So that's a little bit of a headache, but we've done a bunch of stuff to make it easy. And then you have to drill a hole in the bulkhead here. But we have this guy as a template, basically, to mark the exact hole location so you don't have to figure that out. Otherwise, it's pretty much just installing stuff. There are a bunch of steps to it. You've got to take the bumper cover off, which is nowhere near as intimidating as it sounds. Really pretty easy. So kind of a short version for that is best case pro mechanic kind of stuff. It'd probably take a day and a half, maybe two, to get it installed. If you're, home garage kind of thing, it's going to take you a few days to get it installed. But again, we do have very comprehensive written instructions and video instructions to help you out along the way. Yes?
Does our tune change depending on which turbine housing you choose?
Does the tune change depending on the turbine housing? Excuse me. It does not. So our tune is based in physics. We did, then I will refer you to the future video on engine tuning for more details there, but the short version is air in, air out. It's all measured. It's all set up on the front end to be accurate. So we know that the measurement, the voltage that is coming off of the mass airflow sensor is what's actually coming in on from the atmosphere into the engine. So basically the short version is everything's built in physics, so it doesn't need any kind of adjustment for that. Yeah, it doesn't need it. We also cannot do it because it is a CARB legal, or will soon be, kit, so we can't modify the tune. I want to be clear about that one. There's, for this, you load the tune in. If you want to send us some data logs to make sure that there's nothing, there's not an issue with your car or with the install or anything like that, then that's awesome. But this is not a back and forth, oh, let me tweak this. Oh, this value's a little out. Let me do this, and back and forth with maps. This is here is the map, load it in, you're done. Everything's based in math. Everything works very, very well out of the box. So you just don't have to futz with it at all. Yes?
I have an aftermarket exhaust. Does that also apply?
Yeah, so good question. I have an aftermarket exhaust. Does everything you just said apply? Yes. Air in, air out. So it's, yeah, I won't get wordy. Everything I just said. Back up 5 seconds and read it again, or watch it again. But yeah, a muffler, that's fine. If you're doing bigger fuel injectors, you're increasing your fuel pressure, something kind of wonky like that, yeah, that's a different story and would require a different tune that we will not do. But for airflow kind of stuff, that's all accounted for in the sensors, stock-wise. So, yes?
Can Can you talk about the blow-off valve? Did we choose this arrangement for a specific reason? Do we have any other ideas for why or how to implement the blow-off valve?
So basically, why did we put the blow-off valve here in this orientation? I think it was, to some extent, a crime of opportunity that turned out really, really well. This started because we really wanted to retain the stock battery, which we did. So that required this specific shape. And we wanted the air to be sucked in from the coldest part of the engine bay possible, which is that corner behind the headlight, particularly with the airbox there. And that just made it so that this fit very well. Now, it also, from a flow, and I don't know how big of a difference this really makes, but from a flow standpoint, your air is flowing this way, and that's angled slightly, it's not 90 degrees, so it's gonna flow into the bypass valve a little bit easier, and when that air releases, it's gonna shoot at the turbo, the compressor, to spin it up a little bit better. I think we're kind of splitting hairs there, but every little bit. And it just fits really, really well. So we're really happy with how that one turned out. Yes?
Spark plugs. Do I need different spark plugs? What do I need?
So you should be able to reuse the stock spark plugs. There is a better, colder set of spark plugs that we will have available soon. That you don't have to have, but is not a terrible idea. And you do have to gap them down a little bit, but that's about it. So, yes.
Some people are concerned about NC1 and stock engines.
Yep.
Can you maybe provide some relief?
Yeah. So NC1s and stock engines. Basically, the internals, the short version there is that some of the internal parts of an NC1 engine are cast and are not as strong as the NC2 and 3. We've had this kit on an NC1 for, Nick, a year? 8 months? I don't know. It's Nick's friend, but Nick is focused right now. 9 months. 8-9 months. Thousands. Well, man, he drives a lot. So lots and lots of miles. Also, when we did our supercharger kits forever ago, we would run those. I mean, we've got a decade more of experience with those guys and hundreds of cars, and we had no issues with the boost, with the lower boost on that. Now, that said, that's why we do recommend the 8 PSI for the NC1 and the auto cars, which this kit does work with, but they do have those weaker engines. So we do recommend the 8 PSI for those cars, whereas the NC2s and 3s can bump it up to 11 PSI and make a bit more power with no real durability concerns.
Cooling upgrades, radiators, what do you need?
Sure. So what kind of cooling upgrades do I need? That is going to be situationally dependent. So I don't even know how many cars. We have 5, 6, 7 cars maybe running around with these kits now, something in that vicinity. So we've had a handful of different development cars. The short version, if it's a track car, yeah, you need cooling upgrades. Definitely a radiator, fan kit, which, stay tuned eventually. If you want to do hood louvers, that's okay. Basically, our track, our local track here is kind of a perfect storm. It's not real high speed, but it is high load. It's high elevations, high desert, so real high ambient temps, low humidity, high elevation, so low air density. So it's kind of a perfect storm for cooling. And it's okay there, but it is possible to overheat it. So for a short version for a track car, you're going to need some upgrades. For a street car, we've had no issues on healthy stock cooling systems for street cars.
What about clutches?
Clutches. You're going through my list here. I'm going to have to pick and choose once I get into it. So the short version with a stock clutch, with clutches, is that a healthy stock clutch should last for a while behind this turbo kit, but you will shorten its life. You will need to replace it eventually, and at that point, I would recommend upgrading to a stronger clutch, such as ours. If you want to be very proactive about it, no problem. You can do that on the front end. With the NAs and the NBs, well, the stock clutches just can't handle it. Do it proactively. It's not a good idea. With the NCs, you'll probably be fine for a while. So don't feel like you have to do a clutch. But when you do have to do a clutch upgrade, don't put another stock one in there.
2 5 swaps.
2 5 swaps. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so we have not done, actually, that's not completely true. We haven't done 100% comprehensive testing with a 2.5 swap. From what we can gather and what we designed, if you use the drop motor mounts, so basically you leave the head of the 2.5 in the same position vertically and everywhere for that matter as the 2.0, then this kit should work just fine. That's why this has such a long slot in it. This is the cat brace bracket. So physically, it should fit fine. The tune will not work for a 2.5 and is not safe on a 2.5. Stay tuned, and that's all I'm going to say for now. But stay tuned on that one.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yeah, look at me.
Hey, could you show the folks at home the downpipe on the outlet and kind of talk about the U-weld option a little bit?
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, Matt, no, can you grab the cat for me? So, thank you, sir. We'll just set that there for a second. So, first, I'll show you the interface here. So, this is a 4-inch Vband. So, it just mates up like that, and there's a Vband clamp over there, take my word for it, that holds these two parts together. So, that's how that works. In terms of the U-weld option, so what you have is, it was just here. Hey, Mike got it for me. Okay, so your stock setup looks roughly like this. So you have to cut it, where you can see that we have obviously cut it. Thank you, Vanna. And this goes on there and gets welded around. Now, there is a specific procedure for this in the instructions, which you do need to follow, because if you weld it like this, it's not going to fit. So basically, you use the stock bracket that goes on the bottom here and bolts to the block to get everything in place. And again, there's more steps, follow the instructions. But you bolt it in like that, get it so everything's solid, this is fully seated into the outlet, all that fun stuff. You get in and you tack it in a few places with your welder. And you've got decent access in there. And then you take it out, you fully weld it, you put it back in, and you're good to go. So if welding is magical and you don't have a clue, either get somebody else to do it or buy the complete setup here that is already fixtured, fully welded. You can see how gorgeous the welds on top there are. The welds on the bottom are also very pretty, but totally hidden by the heat shield. So, yeah, so basically you do it that way and go on your merry way. So, hopefully that answers the question. If I didn't, let me know. More questions?
If you weren't already, could you talk about just high points of some of the major components in the kit that you haven't on the table? That way we can kind of see some of the individual things.
Yeah. So we'll go through high points of components on the table here, high points in the kit. So like I said, it has we retain the stock battery. You don't have to screw around with wiring. You don't have to buy a different battery. There's no reverse polarity, anything like that. 100% stock battery. We do that with this bracket here. And you can see these holes here, basically it just shifts the whole thing to the side. New piece to hold it down on top. It still has stock, excuse me, wiring anchor points and that kind of thing. There was another thing I was going to say about this, but I have forgotten it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You want to go fun experiment? If you have a stock NC battery tray right now that's plastic, go out, grab the battery, wiggle it back and forth. Terrifying. It's not held down very well. But anyway, airbox. So this is the airbox here that goes in the corner right here. So that kind of goes there. There's a lid on it. The lid we found was, even though it's tucked in this corner, even though we had this baffle, the lid was really important to keep our intake temps down, which is very important. So we put it back in this corner, put a lid on it. The intake temps are really ambient, unless you're sitting in traffic for long enough, which is just nature of the beast kind of stuff. Now this is all Cerakoted, so it's high temp, it's durable, it's not scratch proof, but it is somewhat scratch resistant, and laser engraved with the pretty logo and all that. Let's see, this is our oil supply kit. So all the adapters, fittings, lines, everything you need. You do have to remove the oil filter block from the engine block. Just pull it back a little bit. Sometimes your gasket doesn't survive, so we include a new one for you. This is the water supply kit. So we've got this custom formed hardline to get the turbo water away from the turbo right here. And basically make sure that everything is routed exactly as we want it. And also the silicone line is actually really, really good with heat. And also we want to keep it away from heat as much as we can. Heat sleeve, fittings, custom fittings here. Oil drain. This is to get the oil from the turbo back down to the pan. It is important to get the orientation on your center section correct, which is why we include this, and we built the manifold very specifically for all of that. Turbo, 2 housing options. Cat, we talked a bunch about that. Intercooler, now this is powder coated, but it has a thermal dispersion coating on it. So basically you get the durability and the aesthetics, but you also still shed heat like bare aluminum would. So kind of best of everything. A bracket here, all those triangles, they saved us something like 1 pound of weight. This goes on the back of the turbo, weird snaky shape, but it fits really well, constantly, increasing cross-sectional area for the best exhaust flow possible. Manifold, cast iron, works very well, very durable, holds the turbo, flows well. Check out the tech videos. I go way more in depth with that. Custom formed silicone hoses. We love these things. Super durable, really easy to install, fewer failure points, all that fun stuff. Custom turbo blanket, so you don't have to put gold foil on the valve cover. You don't have to replace the plastic valve cover. Keeps everything safe, and it's a specific shape to cover where it needs to be covered, is the short version there. Comes with an OBD2 cable and your tuning software and your SEMA certified sticker. An air filter, yay. Bypass valve, turbo smart, high quality stuff. MAF pipe. This, again, Cerakoted, engraved, looks pretty. There's actually a fair amount of science in this and both ends of it. Refer to the tech video for that. Replacement fuel injectors, new heater hose, because we reroute that a little bit. We need to relocate the washer tank. Now, well, I'll talk more about that later, but bracket, little 3D printed piece that clips on to locate the bottom of it. And then butt connectors are great, but also annoying. So we have a just extension harness that's plug in, easy peasy. This is kind of your miscellaneous bag here. So these are the pieces, to locate that hole in the bulkhead I was talking about, to protect the silicone hose from the cut edge. And then there's also this one on the other side of it there. We did find that in some extreme situations, we would actually melt the washer cap on these cars. So we printed a new one. This material doesn't melt at 12 degrees like apparently the stock one does. So this is good for durability. Evap location stuff, little things. You've got to take the windshield cowl panel out, and the little covers where the screws go through have a tendency to break every time, so we include new ones. New map sensor and bracket. This is to nice machined aluminum piece to move the power steering reservoir slightly, which is basically just another thing from the battery relocation. Vacuum hose and a cat brace kit. And there's other little stuff, like we include You know, sometimes we found that a lot of the MAF O-rings don't really like going back in the second time. We include a new one. Oddly, the power steering is hypersensitive to any kind of movement, so we include a new O-ring for that. So if you have any issues, you already have the parts you need. You don't have to worry about it. So hopefully that is a quick overview. More questions?
Can I use E85?
No, this is not tuned to E85. Nope, it won't work with the 85.
Let's see, what kind of fuel is it tuned for?
So this is tuned for premium in the US, which is at least 91. If you have 93, you'll make a little more power, but it will still be totally safe on 91. And no, we do not have different tunes for 91 and 93. If we did, you'd make a little more power, but not that much more. And you would, and with the California thing, that would make things quite a bit more complicated. So basically, it just wasn't worth it to start off with. So.
What about catch cans? Can they be installed? Is it needed?
So what about catch cans? Should I install one? Yes. I don't really care what kind of car you have. You should install a catch can on it. Maybe not EVs. We'll give those a pass. But outside of that, no, I really like catch cans personally. I am slightly terrified by the grossness that they pull out of healthy engines. But I do recommend that. I will also forewarn you on the NC, this side of the PCV, super easy to get to, no big deal. I'll also, brief thing, this noodle right here, we actually leave it really long so that if you do have one of the metal valve covers that where the PCV is back here, no problem, it's already long enough to take care of that. If you want to put a catch can on the other side, yes, do it, awesome. Also, don't complain to me about it because it is a gigantic pain to get to the PCV system on an NC because it is underneath the intake manifold, buried where you basically can't get to it at all. Ask Kyle. More questions? Kind of? All right. That was a good run. If you have more questions, again, drop them in there. I've got a big pile of them here, some of which will now be skipped. So good job predicting each other's questions here. So let's see. Stock clutch, we talked about this, this will work with an automatic NC. We've got one in the parking lot running around right now. Basic stuff, it does work with air conditioning and power steering. No weirdness there. Right-hand drive, maybe. This will not work on a 1.8 NC. The tune is not appropriate for a 1.8, and I'm going to guess the port differences or the port spacing and such is different as well, so no. Any stock parts that aren't compatible. So the Canadian and other market washer tank that goes here, just like the original one does, is gigantic. Since we relocated here, that gigantic tank will not fit here. We will soon sell just this stock tank if you need it. We're not the only place. You can get one somewhere else if need be. But basically, it'll work totally fine. Sorry, let me rephrase. That is the only stock part that we are aware of that it will not work in any market that it will not work with. That said, all of our development was on US cars. So if we have missed something for some other market, then I apologize. How long does the install take? Very skill dependent, but at least 1.5, maybe 2 days. Can I do it myself or will I need a second set of hands? You should be able to do it yourself. Skill dependent, I'll put that qualifier on there still. It is easier to remove the hood and reinstall it if you have 2 people. That said, the hood is aluminum, it's light. It is doable for a single person. Can anyone with a welder do the downpipe modification? Just because I have a welder doesn't mean I can actually use the welder. So if you are a competent welder, yes, it shouldn't be a problem, but just because you have a welder doesn't mean you can do it. What are some good while you're in there kind of things? Basically, you want to make sure that the engine is healthy in general. If there's any kind of maintenance that needs to be done, do that ahead of time. And if Mike would let me finish, An oil change is basically required because you do have to take the drain plug out of the oil pan to do the drain, to do the turbo oil drain setup. You're also, excuse me, you're also going to be breaking into the cooling system. So if you haven't changed your coolant in a long time, now's a good time to do it. The NC does come stock with long life coolant. They're not new anymore though. So if you haven't done it recently, probably a good idea to just go ahead and do that while you're in there. But that's kind of it. Do you have any other questions?
I have other questions.
Okay. Should I continue?
Go ahead.
Okay. So what extra maintenance is required? You know, the silicone water lines, they won't last forever, but they will last a very, very long time. But you know, that's a thing that you'll need to pay attention to. If there's a coolant smell, investigate it. Pretty standard stuff like that. I would recommend synthetic oil. I mean, I kind of recommend synthetic oil anyway, but with the increased load on the engine, it's that much more important to do synthetic oil, high quality oil filter, all that kind of stuff that Flyin Miata sells. So, but that's kind of it. You know, really it doesn't, we built it with an OE mindset, so it's durable, there's clearance on stuff. So you don't have to worry about a ton of extra maintenance. Now, the harder you drive the car, the more likely there is. You know, if it's a dedicated track car, yeah, you're gonna have to do some more maintenance and keep a closer eye on stuff. If it's a street car, I wouldn't really expect much, if any, additional maintenance. Okay, what supporting mods are required or recommended? We kind of already talked about this. Basically, the stock clutch is okay, but you'll probably want to replace it eventually. The stock cooling system actually seems to be fine for street, but not for track. So if you've got track use in mind, you're going to have to replace some parts in the stock cooling system. Can you recommend a shop near me to install it for me? Now, we do have a list of recommended installers on our website, so you can go check that out. We don't have a recommended installer in every possible city. So if we don't have someone on that list, go to your local Miata club and ask them for a recommendation, and usually they'll have a good recommendation for you. Okay, I'll just go through my whole list here since, yeah, anyway. How do I make sure to get one of the first kits? Again, website, login, notify when available. So we will send you an email as soon as it's in stock, which again, May 13th, mid-morning, Mountain Time. How long will we be out of stock after this first batch? Now, for you live and nearly live viewers, we have a bunch of turbo kits. We have over 40 turbo kits that are ready to go on the shelf, waiting for us to open up those order books and for you to pull that trigger. Once those are gone, it's probably going to be a couple months before we have a restock. But at that point, it should be fairly normal from there. So, time frame for California and the CARB EO, pretty similar. So from this point in time, about 2 to 3 months. The earliest, the best case would be around the end of June 2025, if you're watching way far in the future, which hopefully will line up well with the next shipment of turbo kits that we have in stock. Okay, how do I choose the turbine housing? We definitely answered that one. Will standalone pieces be available? Yes, but not now. So our focus is on complete kits for now. Once we've kind of caught up with that, then we will ultimately have individual pieces available basically as replacement parts, but they will be on our website. But I don't have a time frame for you on that because kits are our focus. Is it safe for high mileage cars? Yeah, as long as it's healthy, as long as the engine is healthy. If you're at all concerned, compression test, leak down test, address any leaks, make sure that it's good to go first, and if it is, you should be fine. The higher mileage, the more of a risk, but the auto car we just put it on is 160,000 miles, and you know, that's fine, no problem. Will this kit shorten the life of my clutch or engine? Stock clutch, yep. It'll still last a while, so again, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it will. The engine, it comes down to how you're driving the car and all that kind of stuff. Literally, I would say yes. Pragmatically, no, not for a street car. it should still, this is tuned very well. It's got safeguards in place, including safeguards specifically for the catalytic converter. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. That said, the harder you drive the car, the more you're going to shorten the life. Always a fun one. Will tariffs affect the future price? Can't answer that question. Who can? That said, at this point in time, what's the seconds that we're counting on today? I do not foresee any immediate price changes due to tariffs. That could change tomorrow. But at this point, I do not foresee any issues. For what it's worth, depending on exactly how you count, this kit is over half US sourced. So, will we be giving demo rides at summer camp? Probably not. Summer camp is very, very busy. But hey, if you really want to ride, ask us. The worst we can say is no.
I accept bribes.
Yeah, Mike accepts bribes. Okay, let's see. I'm going to skip a little bit here. Can I get one of these that doesn't have a catalytic converter in it? Nope. That would make the kit illegal. Reminder, your car has a primary cat right now on it. If you remove it, it is no longer legal to use on the street in the US. So we will not sell you one of these that does not have a cat in it. It's a 4-inch V-band. We can't stop you from doing something on your own, but it is designed to be used with a catalytic converter. Common mods that aren't compatible. That's a pretty open-ended question. I don't have a solid answer for you. I will say that due to the turbo location, we certainly cannot guarantee that all shock tower braces will work. Now, as you can see, the stock one fits fine. There is a little contact here, but that's flexible stuff. Excuse me, and that's it. Aftermarket ones, it's very tight over here. So maybe, but I'm definitely not going to guarantee it. Okay, we already talked about 2.5 stuff, octane. So again, make sure you are using at least 91 octane fuel, and that's by the US measurement method. So whatever that is for your particular locale, but 91 is a minimum. What is the minimum boost? So that's going to vary a bit by elevation, but around 8 PSI is going to be the minimum that you can run. Horsepower for 8 PSI on a 0.86 AR, it's about, so we don't have that specific dyno chart right now, if memory serves, but something around 220 wheel uncorrected. And again, there are a bunch of dyno charts on our website right now. Yeah, we already talked about modifying the tune. Can I load a new tune or make more power with a different tune? So we spent a ton of time, money, and effort, blood, sweat, and tears on this calibration. We worked again with Greg Banish, Calibrated Success, who is an OE level calibrator. So this isn't poking around and, oh, it's not knocking and my air fuel ratio looks right, so I'm good to go. There is a lot that goes into this in terms of safety, in terms of durability, in terms of emissions, in terms of catalytic converter health, in terms of power, of course. So I would not recommend changing the tune because there is a ton invested in this. You might be able to get a few more horsepower without dramatic changes with a different tune, maybe, but at what cost? So my 2 cents, I'm biased, my 2 cents, leave it be. Related, will there be a file for VersaTuner? So our file will be preloaded into VersaTune for our licenses. So it's super easy to load the tune into your car. Again, refer to the instructions. There will not be an individual editable, viewable file. Again, lots of time, money, and effort went into this calibration. So the calibration and all of the specific values that are in it are not available. Okay. How can I make more power? If you've got an NC1, put an NC2 engine in it, bump it to 11 PSI. Outside of that, there are some things, a new exhaust would be a great idea. And that's about it. You can do other bigger picture things, more boost, more fuel, new tune to accommodate all that stuff, but that is not emissions legal. It's not going to be street legal, and it may or may not be worth the risk and the effort and such. That's up to you. Because I will say that because of how big, because of the big diameter of the cat, and because of the shape of this and how it grows really well, there's not a lot of pressure loss over the cat. There's more pressure loss across a stock muffler than there is across a stock cat. Or put another way, you're losing more power with your stock muffler than you are with your stock cat. So a muffler, mid-pipe to a lesser degree, those would be good and simple and not risky upgrades for more power. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Thank you for bearing with us. I've made changes to my ROM using something such as ROM drop to change things like throttle limits and fan temps. Will the new tune overwrite these? Yes. It's not possible to keep those and the new tune at the same time. Have we done any back-to-back track testing against a stock NC? Yes. One of the videos that I think I mentioned at the beginning of this is specifically a drive video. So Keith drives it on the street to see what it's like, kind of behavior-wise, and then also on the track, and we do a back-to-back with a stock car, which is currently behind us, becoming not stock and turboed, but it was stock at the time. So comparison there at our local track. That's actually a really fun video, and that should be coming out tomorrow. So definitely keep an eye out for that. What's the 0 to 60 time? Marketing. That's what the 0 to 60 time is. So we don't measure 0 to 60 times because there's so many variables involved. And if you do it in 5.0 seconds instead of 4.9 seconds or whatever, then it's our fault. No. So the short version, dramatically faster than stock. Now, a comparison between the two turbine housings, good question. I think the short version is probably not very much. The small housing is going to come up faster from a stop. The big housing is going to make a little more power on the top end. My guess is that you would be faster with the big housing. Also, don't buy a car just for its 0 to 60 time, or don't specify the housing for that reason. Do a little more big picture in my view. Okay, is it fast compared to the ND Turbo? Yes. I like the ND Turbo a lot. It's awesome. If you have an ND Turbo, you should definitely get one. This one's a lot quicker. Okay, those are my questions. Now back to live questions. Yes?
On the first batch of turbos, what's the percentage between the small housing and the big housing availability?
Oh man, good question. So what is the percent available between small housing and big housing? I think we have 25 small housings and 17 big housings in stock.
That's not a percent.
Yeah. Well, what does that work out to percent-wise? 60% small. But anyway, about that breakdown. So
That's just the first batch.
that's just the first batch. Yeah. Long term, they'll all be available normally, no big deal. But for the first batch, yeah, that's what we have.
What's the warranty on this kit?
Good question. What's the warranty? So the warranty is 1 year. Pragmatically, if you ever have a problem, call us and we'll sort it out. That doesn't mean we're going to give you free parts in 30 years, but in 30 years, call us. We'll figure something out.
Can we offer launch mode or any of the other fun Versatuner things?
Yeah, good question. So does this tune have any of the fun new Versatuner things? Launch, flat shift, anti-lag, overboost protection, overboost/overload. So we do have overboost protection. So this kit will cut the fuel at 200 kPa, which is about 14 PSI, I believe. We don't have any of the other stuff. That other stuff, and actually including overboost protection, is fantastic at destroying catalytic converters. So for that reason, they are not part of our tune. But the failure mode of a bad cat versus overboosting for a long time, that changes the math a little bit, so overboost protection is in there.
requirements are there for Versatune? Like what laptop do I need?
Sure, so software or hardware, I guess. Anyway, requirements for Versatune, basically it has to be Windows or Windows emulator, whatever, on Mac. Sorry, not a Mac person. But it has to be a Windows operating system, and that's about it. I don't know what the technical specs are for it, but you don't really need a lot of horsepower to load this map in. If
Above, Windows 10 or above.
Windows 10 or above. Thank you, Mike. But yeah, hardware-wise, as long as it's functional and not ancient, if it can run Windows 10, you're fine.
Okay, so now since we talked about the turbine housing, what's the breakdown of welded versus unwelded or
So what's the breakdown of welded versus unwelded on the Cat? So DIY versus complete. We have 33 DIY kits, and we have 10 complete kits. Turns out, super weird, Mazda wasn't really expecting an order for 50 catalytic converters out of the blue. So we have a lot more on order. They should be here soon, but they need to be modified. And yeah, that's not a high use item for Mazda, so they were not prepared for our order volume. Whoops.
I have the FM supercharger from years ago. Is this better, and is it worth upgrading to?
Ooh, good question. Okay, I have the FM supercharger from forever ago. Is this better and worth upgrading to? Is it better? Yep, sure is. That's an easy question, sorry. It is, this is unbelievably responsive. So I don't think you're gonna give up anything in terms of responsiveness. It is gonna make more power. You should have less cooling issues just because with the big air-to-air intercooler, you're not gonna heat soak that water-to-air intercooler that setup has. Is it worth it? Man, that's kind of a personal question. Honestly, that supercharger kit is great. It works really, really well. I have no issues with it. This one's definitely better. Whether it's enough better to warrant upgrading, you know, with if it were a track car, I'd think pretty seriously about it. If you want the maximum power possible, I would think very seriously about it. If you go up and down in elevation, this is going to be much easier, you know, add a manual boost controller, and this is going to compensate for that much, much easier than the supercharger. You know, you don't want to be changing pulley sizes. Well, I was going to say pros and cons. The pro is that you already have the supercharger and it's installed. That's the pro for the supercharger. The pro for the turbo is basically everything else. But whether it's worth upgrading is obviously a personal question. So the supercharger kit is very good, and I have zero issues with that. Just, yeah, this one's better.
Did you talk about roughly how long it takes to install this kit?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that we're probably okay then.
Okay. All right. We're good? No more questions? All right. That was, are you sure?
Relevant questions.
Relevant questions, yeah. So if we didn't get your question answered, apologies. We do try to stay at least a little bit on topic here, so we'll get those questions answered in the comments. Thank you very much for stopping by and sticking with us. This was a long one, but I think it was a really good one. We are super excited about this. Again, May 13th, mid-morning, Mountain Time. Sign up on our website. Keep an eye out for those videos. We're going to have the installation videos up soon. The drive video, which is really fun, watch me try to run over a camera, is going to be up tomorrow. Those tech videos, again, I guess I'm biased in all of this, but I think the tech videos are really, really good. And we go a little more in depth about what sets this kit apart. So keep an eye out for those as well. They should be up soon. Now, if you think of questions after the fact, drop them in the comments. We'll get to them. Are you getting one of these? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about it. And if you like this, give us a like, hit that subscribe button. We do this every Thursday, and then there are a bunch of other videos that we do as well, and hopefully more to come even or soon. So with that, thank you again. Tune in next Thursday, and we will see you then.